Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Craig here, and welcome to In Real Time, as we're having real conversations about leading people, organization, and change. And well, today's topic is going to be series planning. We get the questions about how do you plan out what series and how does that all work with messages that you're going to be bringing on the weekends. And so we're going to dive into that. But before we do, I want to make sure that we let you know, hey, you want to hit the like button, subscribe, and the bell notification to make sure you don't miss one episode. And please tell a friend, because we know these can be very helpful to other church leaders as well. Well, I've got two co-hosts with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I am Jen Yarbrough. I am one of our associate pastors helping out with restoration ministries and administrative stuff.
That's good. You might be more than helping out. I think you might be leading that.
It's true.
That's true.
True statements.
Yeah,
those are.
I think so.
And my name is Justin. I'm their life groups pastor around here.
Great.
Yeah. So
really good.
We are going to flip the script on you today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
literally we're talking about your service planning. You don't want to just sit here and explain it our series prep for it.
Yeah.
So will you just kind of give us, like, how do you start that process? Because I know that there are pastors out there right now, and let's say today's Tuesday, they go, I have no idea what I'm preaching on Sunday. I know that is not your normal rhythm. Like, you have a set of series, and even when those are wrapping up, you're already kind of thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
So how do you determine?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say I know there are quite a few pastors that do operate week to week, and honestly, they get there honestly. They're often bivocational. There's little time to prep, and so it kind of goes that way. Also, I know that in seminary, Bible college, some people have taught that no, you don't plan ahead. Planning ahead is not allowing yourself to be led of the Spirit, because when you plan, you're just doing your ideas, but you need to wait week to week and let God reveal it to you. There's a lot of actual very serious conversation around this whole topic and how far out you plan. And I know that I've been around people who planned literally 2 years in advance. I'll just say that is not me.
Yeah.
That is not freedom to me. That's restriction. There's other people that work off the lectionary from their own denomination, and so they'll do that. And then there's other people, as you just said, they're working week to week. And so I know that for all of us, we find our rhythms. And I know for us as a church, it's very important that we do some planning. But I think the key is what gives you freedom. And for me, freedom means I need to do some planning. Okay. And that way I can truly speak into what I think the needs are of our church, and then also help lead us to where we need to go. So for me, I like to be at least the next series up, know where I'm going to go in the following series if I can. So, like right now, as we're entering the fall, I know we're in the series right now, The Stories That Remain, which is the Gospel of Luke. And then we're going to be moving into a new series for September, and it's just 4 weeks, and it's called My Possible Impossible Life. And there's a reason why we're doing that one, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then after that, we know there's going to be another series for the month of October, which is about hearing the voice of God. Because, well, these are literally questions that people are asking us. And so for us, the process really can happen in different ways that will produce a series. So when it comes to the series we're in now for the summer, the reason we're doing the Gospel of Luke is really pretty intentional. It's because back in the spring and winter, there was a lot of people talking about how, well, I don't really care about what organized religion was saying, but we know Jesus is always relevant. And we were leaning into a lot of visitors, a lot of people wanting to invite their friends to church.
Right.
And so it comes down to, what do they want to come and hear? Well, they don't want to hear my ideas.
No.
But we could say, hey, you need to come and hear what Jesus has to say. So let's go hang out in a gospel.
Yeah.
And so let's find out what Jesus actually does say to culture, to my life, to my family. And so that was a reason that we dove in. We've already done the book of Matthew. We've already done the book of John in the last, 10 years. We've done those. And I've done Matthew actually a couple of times. And I've never done Luke. And so we thought, well, let's go through Luke. And so we haven't done the whole book. We're in chapter 8. And we're going to have to take a pause from that. And we're going to go into the series in September. So that one, called My Possible Impossible Life, the reason we're doing that one is because we are coming up to our anniversary. And we knew that this would be a time of celebration. But it also feels like at this season of time that people's psychology is changing, meaning from the pandemic, you could mark it, about every 3 to 6 months, how people are changing and becoming more open or less open. And we're sensing, as we're coming through the summer, people are now more open to hear about spiritual things, not necessarily Christianity, but spiritual things.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it comes down to, do you want to know what God's best is for your life? Well, the answer to that for every person is yes.
Right.
There's a few that would say no, but most everybody says yes. And I know this because I ask people this who aren't Christian people, how can I pray for you? And I want you to know that when I'm praying God's best for you. Every single time they have said, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very interested in knowing God's best for my life. Okay. Now from there's a whole lot of questions. I get it. And we're funneling down to eventually, I offer you Jesus. But we first got to start with this really big picture of God. And so that series coming up in September allows for that. So people can then say, well, I'm going to invite my friend to church in September, celebrating our anniversary as a church, because there'll be 14 years at that point. And so we get to celebrate, and we get to come back to this idea of what's possible from my life. Because for someone who is far from God, they're already thinking, I've messed up my life so incredibly badly, God can't do anything in me. It's impossible. It's impossible for me to get my mind back and my heart back. I've destroyed them. It's impossible for me to get my family back. I've destroyed them. My influence at work, whatever my work career is, a lot of people feel like that's impossible, to do a rewind on that as well. And so we're saying, no. Through Christ, all things are possible. That might be somewhere in the Bible. And it might have been given to us for the exact reason that people are thinking these things. No, it's impossible. Well, no, it is possible, which is why Jesus would tell Nicodemus, well, you can be born again. Meaning that impossible thing, it's possible. A new creation in Christ. And so we bring all those things together in September and say, invite a friend, because this message is always relevant to them.
Yeah.
And so that need to want to share our faith and stay on mission, and to help people actually hit the reset button in their life, they all came together. As we sense that this is where people are at, let's take advantage of that moment and speak to the felt need with a series, and also connect our people to their mission of evangelism. And so all that comes together in that one series in September, and that's why we're going to be doing that one specifically.
Yeah, and we take a break from the current series because we always start a new life group launch in the
Yes.
fall. So
Yeah.
that's why you're saying we'll come back to this current series after
Yeah.
we get through these, but this is kind of like we want to rally everybody together. We want to have this layered down through our life group teaching,
Yeah.
etc., just
Yeah.
in case they don't understand. A listener might not understand why we're stopping, but we always do that in September.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's because of our strategy for layered teaching.
So you got to unpack that more.
Yeah. Okay. So layered teaching is just an idea that we came to years ago as a small groups church, because one day I actually had the thought, if people actually do what we're asking them to do, we are never growing deep. We're always shallow, because I'm going to introduce an idea on a Sunday morning. Then I'm going to ask them to do a devotion Monday through Saturday, which introduces a brand new topic every single day. Then back in the day, people would come out on Wednesdays for another
Bible
sermon,
study or something.
and then they also go to their life group and get introduced a new topic there. Literally, we are introducing 5 to 9 different topics in 1 week.
Right.
And we're not going deep on any of them. So what if we introduce a topic on the weekend, and then devotionally we work through that during the week, and then we gather somewhere during the week in our life group to talk about what God has been saying to us. And we get to share that experience with other people. We're growing deeper.
Right.
Because I don't have to learn all this in 12 months. I literally have my entire life to be a disciple of Christ. And that layered teaching happening on the weekend, going into our time in the chair, which is our devotional time, which we challenge all of our people to do every week, and then the life group as well, is so powerful. And yeah, it is our discipleship plan, and it does work, and we know it works because our people have been growing deeper for these last 10 to 12 years since we've been doing it.
Yep.
But it means we have to be very specific about what we teach on the weekends, very strategic. So I can't decide that Tuesday before the Sunday.
Yeah.
Because when I do the message, I got to hand it to you, Justin.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with it?
Oh, I sit down and I write life group curriculum based on it.
Yeah.
So it kind of works this way. You preach your message. You have Monday, we have our meeting day. Tuesday's your study day. And you prep your notes. And so by Wednesday, mid-afternoon, early afternoon, depending on the week, depending on the series, I get your rough notes. And from there, I then have to sit down, study it out as well, and write a life group study out of it. How do you help people? And really, here's the big theological word. It's exegesis. What does it say? What does it mean? How does it apply?
Yeah, right.
That's what I work with. And so I unpack those and I untangle all those through the passages or the ideas in other passages, depending. But the idea is we parallel the thought or the passage so that, again, it's that depth that we're shooting for.
Yeah.
You do it in school, you do it in college, and you don't even realize it. They call it a lecture, lab, and homework.
Yeah.
It's almost literally what we're doing. We just call it layered teaching.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea.
Yeah, it's the same
And
idea.
so, but you learn that way. I mean, people, when they walk out of these classes, they go, oh man, I understand organic chemistry. I had the class, I had the lab, and then I had all this homework to do. Well, that's our chair time, is the homework. Sit down with Jesus and do your chair time. They're designed, they're written for you to do that kind of thing. And so, that again, I'm really passionate about the life group model. I love this model. I know that when people lean into it, it really does help them grow the knowledge of the text itself. And so
we're giving space for literally God to do the work in them that he's intending, instead of just, I'm not done with that, but I got to move on because I've got this new thing introduced to me this week, and this is what the church is telling me I'm supposed to do, so I want to be a good soldier and do it. Well, I don't grow that way.
No.
And I don't know very many people who can. In fact, I don't know anyone who can. I know people who do it. I'm not sure how deep they're growing, to be honest.
Right. No, it's fair.
And so if I'm not doing it, I don't want to ask other people to do it that way. So that's really how it is. And I think when it comes down to it, what you're really looking at is I'm also asking, you guys know this, I'll ask you, what questions are people asking you? What are you praying with people about? We're not divulging private conversations. But I was praying with this group the other day. Here were the questions that they had. And here were some of the larger themes. People are questioning, this or that. And because of that, themes and topics and felt needs start to surface. And you realize, that's really, I'm hearing that too. And you sense, I need to speak to that. Those are literally
Yeah.
the questions people are asking. Why wouldn't I want to answer those?
Yeah.
Last summer, we did the book of Revelation. I've never done it. The reason why I did it was because in the winter and spring, so many people were asking and talking and looking for material on the second coming of Christ or the end of days. And I thought, well, I'm not giving them any information. So how can I be upset with them for going and chasing
Right.
other material,
Curiosity.
stuff that I didn't think was all that accurate and
Yeah.
very good.
Right.
I didn't think it was helpful to their faith. Well, of course they're going to, because I haven't given them any. And so I need to do this. And so that was literally why we did it. And it was one of the best series we'd ever done.
Yeah.
Well, it came from that need that I had been hearing and resonating with people.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's that. And then other times as a pastor, you just know, oh, yeah, people aren't really asking this question, but they really should be. Really should be. So like, something here that most recently, how people have been cutting people out of their life. This idea of unforgiveness and bitterness, and you're seeing it work out in people's lives. But culturally, we haven't recognized it yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen how toxic it is, but I
yeah.
see it.
Oh, yeah.
And we see it as a team. And so we say, hey, before people even know to ask the question, should I be handling this toxic waste? We want to tell them, don't handle that toxic waste. Get rid of the unforgiveness, the bitterness. And so we speak to a need we see, whether we hear it from people or not. Both of those are valid, and I believe God is revealing himself in both of those ways. And so, and then other times there's something God's done in me, which is not always to be shared. I don't need to share everything God's doing in me.
Right.
But there's sometimes God's doing it in me, and I realize this is not just for me.
It's for everybody
for
else.
everybody.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yeah. Personally.
Yeah.
So I just finished, my sabbatical over the summer. If God dealt with 10 things in me personally, there's 2 of those that I know I'm meant to share with everybody. Right?
Yeah.
And so these are all really good ways to help project and to plan ahead in the future.
Yeah.
So just for clarity, because I think one of the things you said was really interesting early on in the beginning. You said some pastors feel like they have to have week to week because they feel like God speaks through those. So I know this. I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it because they don't know the answer.
Yeah.
To this. When you plan out, how do you still get out of the way in the midst of those week to week? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense to you? Meaning,
say it a different way.
Even though you plan it out 6 weeks, I have 6 weeks for this. This is the series. These are the ideas that I want to talk about for the 6 Sundays.
Yeah.
How do you still give room for God to speak on those issues each Sunday?
Question.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and you've experienced this. I'll be sitting in a text, and I'll even tell the people, it's like, hey, I only got through half my notes today.
Yeah.
So guess what?
We'll
come back next week and we'll finish it up. Part 2. So now a 6-week series just became 7.
Yeah.
And I learned early on, I have to give myself that permission.
Okay.
And I didn't always feel it. I always said if it was 6 weeks, I have to be 6 weeks. And I realized I was frustrating myself because I don't feel freedom. I feel constrained.
Okay.
And then I again, it's so stupid why we fall into some of these patterns that we do.
Yeah.
But one day I just asked myself, why are you feeling constrained by that number?
Right.
If you aren't done with the text and it's important, then do it next week.
Yeah.
Do it next week instead of preaching an hour and 15 minutes sermon, which nobody's hearing the last part anyway.
Yeah.
Last half of, why don't you break it into 2 weeks and just do it that way? Way better strategy, by the way.
Yeah.
Nobody's buns can handle an hour and 15-minute message, so please don't do that.
So-
if you are, stop it.
In the midst of teaching, you give yourself permission for God to
Gotta
kind of lead
have
you
that
through
permission.
stuff. But
Yeah.
even
The only place that doesn't work is probably Easter
True.
and Christmas.
yes,
Right.
which you
Because most people are kind of done with Christmas. People are
gotta
ready to
wrap
move
it up.
on.
yeah, they're like, okay, we're
Yeah.
done. We don't
Yeah.
need to hear about the birth of Jesus and the wise men the day
It's
after the
January
week after.
8th. Can we move on? Yeah. Right.
He was
Yeah.
born. Thanks.
Yeah, it's still important, but
It
Hey,
is
though, if
Totally.
good strategy to get them back the next
But I
day,
think
or, like
I
leaving them
think-
hanging.
Sure.
I think the question isn't just the in the moment when you're preaching question. It's the, okay, I have
Planning.
this 6 weeks lined out.
Yeah.
How do I just kind of sit in the pocket week 1 and allow
Mm.
you to speak to me about the text or the idea? Mm-hmm. And then week 2, okay, I finished week 1, this idea. You actually
Yeah.
completed it, and
Yeah.
that's done. Now in week 2, how do you give yourself room and space for that? Like, what is your process for that?
Yeah, that's a good question too, and it depends on if it's a topical series or if it's a like a biblical book.
Like we're in the book right now.
Yeah, and so I think that right there is one of the big pieces. Often, when earlier on in the church, I used to do a lot of series teachings, and it was just because that's what I grew up around, and so I was used to it. But then I moved into this more just take the book, start at the beginning, and move to the end. It still is presented as topical because, I mean, every book is topical.
Yeah, you're
that's
doing
the reason they wrote it.
You're doing
and so
topics
I'm
through it, yeah.
simply understanding this topic and the section and breaking it down that way, and then I can just present that up front. Hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's the topics that are being addressed in this series, and hey, this is why we're teaching it, because this is relevant to your life, this particular topic. And so I'll go through and do a rough outline of how I think it's going to go. But I remember when we did Philippians, it was probably 4 weeks longer than I anticipated. But that's because I just give myself the freedom, and it's okay
Yeah.
to do that. But I do generally start with an outline. It's going to be this many weeks. Here's how I think it's going to break down. And, you know, I'm sort of right sometimes and sort of right not times. But at this point, I don't really care. I'm just trying to teach and make sure that it's really strong each and every week. So, but if it's a topical message series, then that's a little harder because the passages don't necessarily direct me. And so that's a little easier actually, because then I can just deal with that one topic, that 1 week. I know I want to hit these 2 or 3 points in that topic, and I'm able to do it. So those tend to be a little bit more, if it started out as a 4-weeker, then it's going to stay a 4-weeker. It tends to be a little more true. Does that help answer that question?
I think it's a great answer
Yeah.
to that question. Have you ever
It's
conscripted
great.
others to help you in this process, just out of curiosity?
Good question. Yes, we do a combination of things. I definitely love to include you guys in these. We've done a number of things where we intentionally brought the staff in, and there's like 4 or 5 of y'all staff pastors that help me put the message together. Sometimes, right now we're not in that rhythm. It really is more of a scheduling issue. I'd like to do it more, but for my schedule, it's really super hard to do that.
You got a lot on your plate right now.
Earlier in the week,
Yeah.
and make that happen. And so I'm not doing it as much, but we definitely do. Other times I'll go sit in one of your offices and say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with the text. What are your thoughts about this or that? I was thinking about this. I'm doing the same thing. It's just a little less informal. But I know when we did sabbatical planning, we sat down as a team and we walked through each and every week.
Yeah.
We talked about the main points and possibilities, and we lined that whole thing up. By the time I left, those messages were really locked in solid with content about what our challenge was going to be for that week. And so I think collaboration is such a good creative tool that I would highly recommend it, rather than locking yourself in an attic and not coming out for days.
I got one more question about collaboration, because he does this. You know what I'm talking about? You do know what I'm talking about, because he's done it to you. Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
After his first message, what does he do?
It says any changes.
Yeah.
You immediately grab one of us for feedback.
Yeah.
After you're done greeting all the new people, you go, okay, what would you change? What would you do different? What would you say different?
Yeah. And I try to grab 2 or 3. And the reason we do that is
there it
because
is.
the goal here is to be effective in teaching. And if I teach something, obviously everybody heard it. You know what my goal was. If it wasn't as effective as it could be, well, then I want to change it, because I got another service coming up and I want it to be better. So how can I make it better? That's the point. And you guys love me. I love you. We care about the mission. We care about what people hear and whether or not they're learning it. So the question is going to be, did the illustration hit like we thought?
Yeah.
At that point, was it as clear as we wanted? Did something get left out that's glaring? You know, those are some obvious questions that, you know, I want to know because I don't want to be the emperor without clothes. I don't want to hear about it Monday morning.
Yeah.
Or on the drive home when my wife says, yeah, that was interesting today. I don't want that.
It was interesting today.
No.
That's never a good word for my wives.
Had that,
was interesting.
and I don't want that,
was so
anymore. It's
interesting.
horrifying.
So can I ask just the I know it seems like a duh question, but I want to ask it because I think senior leaders need to hear this from you.
Yeah, senior leaders.
We
need encouragement.
Yeah, and what is it? Is it scary to ask, or was it scary in the beginning? Because I don't think it is anymore.
Right.
But you've created a culture where we all do this now.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't one of us that gets off the main stage when we have the honor to teach that goes, well, that was amazing. I'm awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, we immediately
We're
go,
all asking.
what would you shift? What would you tweak? What do I need to change?
Yeah. Exactly.
So you created that culture. So what was it like? I mean, in the beginning, oh, sorry.
It was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was scary because I have an ego like everybody else. I have pride like everybody
else. Had you ever
else.
seen it before?
I've never seen it. Never seen it. I'd heard about it.
Okay.
I'd heard about it, but I had not seen it actively work. And I was present when a senior pastor asked the question, but it was clear that everybody in the room did not actually have permission to say what they were thinking.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, so he's trying, but he hadn't given permission. And so that's where I knew I needed to do some work, because if my senior pastor had ever asked me that question, I know what my answer would have been in every previous church. And it would have been, no way, that was the most amazing sermon I'd ever heard, right? And I knew that unless I told people, listen, I actually want to get better, and I know they're not all 100%. It's never 100%. It can always be better. And I know that because every time I preach it, I wish I'd done something a little different. So let's just admit it up front, and let's just let everybody know, listen, and we even said this, guys, I'm assuming it's good. It's good. I know I'm a good teacher, okay? I'm not incredible, but I know I'm a good teacher. So let's just start there. So if I'm a good teacher trying to get better, what would you tell me?
Yeah, I like that.
That way, when you talk to me, the assumption is it didn't suck.
Yeah.
Okay, so
no, you're right.
Don't hear me say that.
No.
It's just, if you're asking for how could we make it better, you could have made that illustration a little shorter.
Yeah, tweak this.
Be a little more concise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to clarify this.
This was confusing.
Yeah. So you guys tell me that stuff all the time, and it's good.
Yeah.
I love that. Or, hey, that was 47 minutes. How can I cut 5?
Yeah.
Right?
Hey,
And
here's the
you guys
spot.
are great to tell me.
I don't feel like that story kind of quite worked, or you can shorten it up, tighten that little piece up.
Yeah.
Kind of hung out here with the car, illustration.
Yeah.
It was fun. I think you could. Yeah. I mean,
And I have the permission, and we've given each other this, to say, now you don't have to accept it.
Right.
You might say, no, I have to have that.
I feel like
because I feel passionate. There's a reason.
Right.
Maybe you don't see it, but I do. And so that's the benefit. I'm getting critique. I don't have to do it, but I get to accept it and think about it. But I know I'm not hearing this from somebody who thinks I'm lousy.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Now,
not at all.
Yeah.
If I feel it's like this is coming from a critical spirit, this person doesn't care about me. In fact, they're using this as an opportunity to get a dig in on me. Well, guess what? I'm not asking that person.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not asking that person.
fair.
But I know
That's
you
wisdom.
guys. You guys want this to be better. You know I want that. And I know it doesn't suck. Okay.
Yeah.
So how can we get better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And together we get better. And that's how you do there. So at first it was scary. Now it's completely routine.
Well, no, totally.
Completely routine.
Like I'll even hang out after
doesn't bother
service
me
just
whatsoever.
to chat because I know you're going to ask the question. So I'll kind of linger in that area if I've
Yeah.
got something, don't have anything going on, because I know the question's coming. He's going to want to ask.
Yeah. In
And-
fact, when I go other places, I'll ask them after the first service, and they're like, "What?" So I'm like, "No, I really want to know." And then I ask them, "What about my opening illustration, did that hit home? Did that set up well?
Yeah.
Did that's the thread?
Yeah.
Did this? Was there anything that didn't make sense? Was the challenge clear in the end?
Yeah.
You know, and then I, even in that environment, I make sure, no, I want to know. In fact, if you know, and I'll often share this illustration, Peyton Manning in his last year, which he won a Super Bowl in that year. In his last year, I heard him say it. He goes, I have a coach, a quarterback coach. And if that coach is not coaching me, and at that point, he was already a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. Everybody knew it. He said, if that quarterback coach is not coaching me, I'm mad. If Peyton Manning could say that, I need coaching.
That's good.
I want coaching. It's the only way I'm going to get better.
That's good.
So-
Any other thoughts about sermon planning?
I think that I've
Delivery.
said a lot already,
Yeah.
but no, I think those things are
stuff.
really helpful. Obviously, it's a lot, big, broad topic, but I think those things for this particular topic, probably all I got to say.
Well, I mean, you
I don't
just,
know. Did all that work? Was there anything you guys would say, hey, you need to tweak that? Is there a different story I could have shared? Is there something?
Well,
No, I love it.
I love
Yeah.
the felt needs. I
Yeah,
mean,
me
because that's
too.
stuck. And I love that you provide the feedback for us,
Mm-hmm.
because we can come to you and say, hey, I've been having these conversations with people.
Yeah.
We're going to need to address this.
Yeah. And
And-
again, we don't share private information.
No.
We're just sharing trends.
Right,
Yeah.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying, oh my gosh, so and so said such and such. No.
Right.
It's I've been having the conversation about faith or about
Yeah.
hearing the voice. That's how the voice of God one
That's how it came about,
Is
yeah.
people are like, how do I know it's God and not my own imagination? How do I? Well, you know, and I'm like, man, I've been having a lot of those.
Yep.
We need to talk about that. We
Yeah.
need to teach about that from the main stage.
Right.
To bring clarity to the muddy. And so, but not just that. I mean, it's the same with our life group labs. It's the same question.
Yep.
What conversations are we having out there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's address those in a lab and go really deep into these issues.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So good.
yeah. So,
Great stuff. Well, thanks for having a real conversation about leading people, organizations, and change. And if you liked this episode, and I hope you did, hit the like button and subscribe and the bell notification, and you won't miss one episode as it drops. Please share this with, 20 friends. That'd probably be good.
Sounds good.
We'd
Couple
love for
senior
that.
pastors.
So thanks for joining us today in real time.